Hey, remember I talked about qualifiers? All the different words and letters and numbers that we can use to communicate what is essentially the same truth or concepts or designs or how it works, right? So, if you've listened to any of my videos, I play around with a lot of letters and a lot of words. It's called musical. You ever heard of musical chairs? Rearranging stuff? You're a creative artist, right? And you're running on a pure love vibration, which is known as a pure heart, which is pure light, which is your soul. So I knew as a child, I'm running this equipment, which is called an antenna. So when Santos mentioned poles, for example, well, I was a firefighter, so I know what a pole is. I lived at a fire station where the bunks are upstairs and the engines are downstairs, the fire engines, right? And an engine is known as a pumper because it pumps water using a pump, which is a centrifugal pump. So you know what static electricity is, right? And residual flow and how fire hydrants work and how water works, what geothermal power is, and what a hydroelectric plant is, and all the rest of that because you're an electrical power appliance, right? Running on electromagnetic energy that you're breathing in and out, which is compression and expansion, right? So you know that your heart is the center point of a sphere, which is a vortex. So you have ascending spiral, descending spiral. Okay, carbon dioxide you blow out, it's a cooling agent, right? There's got to be an intelligent reason that exists that way, right? You realize we do live in a very creative and intelligent universe, and you know that if it begins with love, it goes on forever. Your universe is going to last a while, right? So when you think of a pole, you're climbing down a single pole, right? That's called a mated chip. I'm a mated chip, which is the one, which is Adam and Eve, right? One electron, one proton, equal in mass, balance. With a neutron. H2 plus 1, baby. That means your water worlds are in balance. You're in a state of peace. You're running a coherent signal of a love vibration. Now they're experiencing what you are, which is what love is. So you have DNA. So you think about 2 poles, 3 poles, 4 poles. A helix is a ladder, the same way that a firefighter climbs a ladder, climbs the rungs to get up higher, which is altitude density consciousness, as above, so below. So that's called in the old Led Zeppelin song, but I think somebody else actually wrote the lyrics to that, which was called The Stairway to Heaven. So if you ever notice when they build roads on a mountain, if you want to go from the top, say from the sea level up to the top, they do them in what? It's the most efficient way to get to the top, right? But you got to be careful coming down that hill the way that coil spins the other way back down to the bottom. Spinning down, spinning up. That's your heart, which I call a light wheel, or what I call a high-speed motor. Hyperdrive. That little child is hyper. H. Y. Hi. Hiya. How y'all doing? Hyperspeed. Where's that little child getting all that energy? He's on fire. He loves his universe, which means he loves his mirror, which means we love all of you. Because we are what love is. It goes on forever, gifting electrons. Gifting electrons. That means you are the center point and the source of all power. And that's what makes love a genius vibration. The genius of it all. The genius of creation. I met a rainbow warrior in a little tiny place called Pahoa, who was reading a book, and the title of that book was called The Genius Frequency. So I thought I'd mention that because there is a friend that I have. Her name is Irina. So this is sort of to you because when I go out in the morning, usually when the sun is up, and I ground my bare feet to the rock here, not far from Mauna Loa, And I give eternal unconditional love when I look up at the sun and the sun expands. And when I look at it through the soul of my eyes, it is pushing pink. I begin seeing the pink expand out of that sun. And then when I look off to my right, I can see green. Green. Sometimes I see purple, but recently I see green. A lot of green, right? Power plants, green plants, photosynthesis, right? So I say this because when I sent her a little link of a recipe for making like these beautiful little sweet goodies, but they come from nature, so you realize they're good for you, right? Instead of eating the junk they sell you in the stores that breaks down into sugars, which is an acid, right? And then, of course, you got to alkalize all that. So here's something in support of Santos Bonanici about when he talked about the 12 apostles, the 12-strand DNA, 144,000 frequencies, baby. And if you want to break that down into fire letters, right? Fire letters, instruction sets on what to build, like a tree, a bird, something that you see in nature moving around, right? It's using energy, right? What does it do? What is its function? So when you're the source and the primary source of power plants, right? I knew this was a long time ago when I was on this island right here, when I realized the energy that's flowing through me is the same energy that's flowing through everything in creation. You want to be a tree? The same love that I've given to a tree when I'm standing next to a tree is the same love that's flowing through that tree that's flowing through me. So you're everywhere that love is. Now that makes it pretty simple when you know that as a small child. And this is what made it so difficult for me my whole life for 65 years now, when I realized how many people that I realized on this planetary consciousness environment that were not experiencing what love is because of the amount of resistance in order for them to experience that to the center point of their heart. That's why I loved Harold Katzvela when he said, binary artificial intelligence, machine codes, goo codes, is not compatible with soul consciousness, heart-based consciousness, the center point of a vortex, the center point of a torus field. So you can simply translate this. Just go to VLC, download. That's a torsion field movie player. You're in the movie, so you're a movie player. You're in the movie. Your consciousness is playing the movie. Remember, I mentioned that one time before. In the old days, they had reel-to-reels, whether it was a sound recorder or whether it was a movie projector of audio and video that you could see on a white screen or even an IMAX. So your consciousness is running the film that was already shot, which is the same thing as when you go to buy a puzzle with the picture on the box that you've already photocopied it and recorded it into your RAM, which is Rambo, the RAM, right? The two horns, the dielectric, the dipole, right? That's why you have the opposite sides, or if you will, the negative magnetic polarity, the pole, and then the positive magnetic polarity. And when they're in balance, you're at 0 ohms. That's known as 0 point. Each center of a sphere, baby, that's pushing electrons, gifting love. Right? Gifting love. Yeah, that's what we do. Which means there's no fee involved. So when this woman had responded to me that she's been reduced to the next level of poverty, where she's basically having to get food out of dumpsters. I've done that. Okay, I could tell you a lot of stories of having experienced such an enormous amount of trauma of what other people have gone through, because I went through 5 or 6 homeless shelters, which I call loose bins, sucking energy out of that, source of food. And it's horrific what happened to her. Yellow Rose, she mentioned that word called horrific. It is. This was not a beginner's course in spiritual warfare down here. This actually was for all the marbles. That's right, all the marbles. So the one put the call out. This was for all the marbles. So all of your spiritual warriors came on behalf of Adam and Eve. Okay? That's the truth of it. And Yellow Rose did an excellent job of showing that in one video called Planet Shields. Or if you will, the first one she did, which was called The Lie That NASA Told. You can see what the one and the allied forces of mankind, which is 12 by 12. We're here. This is why all this is coming out now. They were in a race against time, against Adam and Eve. Okay. So that's the good news. You know, love always wins because love is real, love is true, because that's the source of energy that is gifting it to you. And you know that as a child, you can imagine what it is when this lady's telling me that she's having to experience herself like that, when so many others are not experiencing that because they have a little more money, their situation's a little more better. But this is what I do know. I've shared this before. When you're mated and you're a mated shit. Okay? This isn't about me, but it happens to be how it works when you know the balance between minus/plus and the difference between negative magnetic polarity space and positive magnetic polarity space. And you have a severe imbalance between energy givers, or those that are in love and service to others, which is known as a right-hand pathway. And then you have the left-hand pathway, which is known as the left side, the west gate, that is in service to self, which means it's all about me. I want all this stuff. I want to have 40 cars, 40 yachts. I want to own and control all the space, because the more space that belongs to me, the more I can charge rent, which is money, which is electrons, for those that are occupying that space. So they control their space because you were in negative space. So we were in their domain, otherwise known as a domain box, like a post office box, like an address box, like an ISP address, like a hub server address. Okay? So now you get into operating systems, now you get into software, now you get into antennas, now you get into radio sets, now you get into DNA wars, now you get into frequency wars, now you get into antenna wars. So when you're able to tune all your waves so that your bands are in balance with your antenna to run a clear channel, baby. That means you know what's going on. You love your radio set. You love what you are with your soul and your spirit that is integrated. So when you sort of put this all together, I go out every day and I look up at the sun and I give love to all of you that are here for what you all had to go through, including myself, of everything that I became aware of how much people suffered, and particularly, obviously, what was done to children, which are the worst crimes of all, because that means that they prey on the weak and the defenseless. And when I was growing up, there was one word that they called that. They're cowards. When you got to stoop so low as to feed on something that can't defend itself, okay, that's a punk. That's called a cyberpunk. That's a cybernetic super soldier that's been integrated with AI technology, which is your secret space program. Because of what they learned how to do through the use of technology to erase your memories and commit all kinds of Frankenstein experiments on us. Because they have no love for us. Because they're not in love and service to others. Go look up who Kruger was. General Kruger. Go look at what happened in what was known as the Courland Pocket. The Courland Pocket up by the Baltic states at the end of World War II. I know who Das Reich was, what a Standard is, what an Einsatzgruppen is. I fiercely studied the demons when I was a child because I had to explain to myself How long have they been harvesting energy from souls down here off of mankind? So it didn't take very long to go look at the demon Skull and Bones, galactic pirates. That's called their colors. They fly their colors, their Nazi flag, right? They invert everything. Their symbols are everywhere. They're geometric in form, but they're liars, and they distort things because they run distorted waves. They are not what love is, which is what the law is, which is the law of one, which is the law of Adam, which is the law of spheres that are in harmony and balance with all the others, which means we are in love, we're in peace, we're in harmony, we're in balance, and we are with them with the waves of all the others, which is the tree of life creation. Have a good night. I love you all. It gets better, Irina. Thank you for what you have done and what you've been willing to go through, because the reason that you have so little is because you're not one of them, you're one of us. Because you held the higher ground. Otherwise, you would have a lot more than a lot of others. So a lot of those that gave the most as a result of having the least were the ones that were holding the balance between those that were taking the most, otherwise known as the war between the haves and the have-nots. Right? One drink is too many, 1,000 ain't enough. $1 is too many, a gazillion is never going to be enough for an energetic vampire, which is known as vampiric consciousness. Have a good night. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.